Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they can't stay consistent. I just helped a client who was spinning his wheels grow his online coaching business by doing one simple thing, which is building a daily system that actually works. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how he broke it down, including his mentality, his routine, and the actions that he takes every day now to move forward. Let's go. So my client is a young entrepreneur who started an online coaching business to teach busy people how to play piano with a very fast and easy to learn method for people who don't have a lot of time. But he had some problems. He wasn't really able to be consistent, and he was very early on in this process, this transformation, and he didn't really know what to expect. So first we got into his goals. And my primary goal for him on this call was to develop a consistent daily routine and key actions. And the reasons why we want to do this is to remove unnecessary decision making, to push through the inevitable loss of motivation, because again, he was really early on in this experience. He didn't really know what to expect at this point. I also wanted to try to help him to gamify his inputs to help him kind of break it through those slow periods whenever he's not seeing a lot of results. And I also wanted to make him more predictable and measurable with less variations. So before we get into the mentality, I want you to understand that this is a very young entrepreneur. He had never started a business before on his own. And you know, there are things that early entrepreneurs, people who've never done before, they will all kind of go through the same patterns. And with this, I kind of wanted to prepare him for that because he was really, really excited about what he was working on. And he had been putting in a lot of time, a lot of hours in the past like 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a month or two. And I could just tell whenever I was talking to him on the first call that like this was the excitement, the novelty of starting a business that was getting to him, and he was, you know, ramping up, really, really trying to make things happen. And I knew that this would fall off, and I wanted him to be prepared for that. So I showed him this chart of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And honestly, I think that like all entrepreneurs go through this over and over and over again, especially in the beginning phases whenever they're new to this and they don't understand like how this process works within themselves. So whenever you're starting something new, no matter what it is, and it especially applies to business, obviously you're not very competent because you just started, you don't really know anything. So you start over here at the know nothing part of the scale on the competence axis here. Then on the y-axis, you have the confidence scale, meaning how confident you are in your abilities. So how confident you are in your competence. Well, initially you'll have huge high confidence because you're just starting this thing. You don't know all the stuff there is to learn about it, and you're figuring a few things out here and there. So you're like, oh, I actually know what I'm doing. You know, I'm actually learning some stuff here. Then as time goes on, you start learning more things, and you start learning that there's so much more to learn and that you're not that good. You don't know what you're doing, and it's going to take a lot more time and a lot more iteration to actually get where you need to be. This is called the valley of despair. Before we were at the pink of Mount Stupid. I think that's kind of funny, but now we're in the valley of despair. And this is where most people start a new thing. This is where most people quit and they start a new business because they're like, that old thing I was trying isn't going to work. You know, I'm not good enough at it. You know, whatever excuse they come up with in their head. And then they start a new thing, and then they'll go through this process again where they go from know nothing to the top of peak Mount Stupid and then back down to the valley of despair. And all entrepreneurs go through this. This is where most of them fail. This is where most of them quit and try something else or start making excuses why it didn't work. But if you stick with it and you keep learning and you keep iterating, you'll eventually make it up the slope of enlightenment here, which is where you're learning that you didn't know all the stuff that you thought you knew and how it's a lot harder than you think it is. And eventually you make it to the plateau of sustainability where you're actually pretty competent. You're not a guru yet down here, right? But you're actually pretty competent, and you actually kind of understand the field, you understand how things work, and then you actually have a chance to build a really successful business. And I just kind of went through some of these notes with him, explained to him how I thought it fit into his specific situation. Like I said, most people quit at the valley of despair here. And how do we avoid this? We have to have resiliency, both physically and mentally. And the reason that I put physically in here is because that same part of your mind, that do hard things part of your mind, can be trained in the same way as the body. So if you go to the gym and you're lifting heavy weights, eventually that muscle has to adapt. It has to get better at lifting heavy weights and doing hard things. And not only do I mean that like you can repeat on this and you can do iterations of doing hard things, whether they're mentally hard or physically hard, and you will train that muscle in your brain. It's not actually a muscle, but it's like a pathway in your brain, meaning like once I'm faced with a hard scenario, a hard situation, or a problem to solve, that I will be much more capable to be able to do it if I am used to solving hard things. That's how the brain works. And it works in the same, like I have physically and mentally here, because whenever you lift heavy weights or whenever you go for a hard run or do a hard exercise, do something that's just hard to you. If you're not good socially and you go and speak to a bunch of girls or whatever frightens you, if you do hard things like that, that's training that part of your brain, no matter what it is. So maybe your hard thing is going to the gym because you just aren't a fan of exercise, you're not good at it, whatever it is. Maybe your hard thing is making cold calls and you're just scared to get rejected, and that's the thing. The more that you do these hard things and the more that you put yourself out there, the better your brain will get at doing those things and being able to handle it, and you'll get better and better over time. So I made it a goal for him to stay uncomfortable, to do hard things often. I think this should apply to everyone. I think everyone should have a desire to grow both in their capabilities, to grow, physically themselves, to make them a healthier person, and to just grow in their mentality and to be able to handle harder things and to be able to do harder things, to become more capable. So that was one big goal I set for him there, is to actually start doing uncomfortable things. And if you're in a similar spot like my client, you're trying to grow, but you're stuck overthinking and you're inconsistent, right now I'm taking free one-on-one calls to help you create your own version of this. The link's down below in the description. So one of the biggest problems he had was with his routine and actually staying consistent with both the things he did in the business and with the other things he did throughout the day to keep himself focused. So like I put here, sustainability is our objective. So I wanted him to push, but not push too hard, because I knew he was early on and he was in that excited phase. And I knew that if he pushed too hard, he would get burnt out really quick and he would just quit and give up on everything. So we were trying to avoid that. So how did we structure it? First, we start with 3 working blocks. And to be clear, this client actually had a part-time-ish job at the time whenever he was starting this business, and he kept that throughout starting the business. He only had to work for that job like once or twice a week on whatever, I think it was like Tuesday and maybe Thursday or something like that. But for all the days that he didn't have to do any work like that, I wanted him to be doing 3 working blocks. And if he wanted to, take a breather on the weekends or whatever, then maybe he could just do 1 or 2 that day. But for a working block, I'm looking at this as like, you're not doing anything else. You're not checking your phone. You don't have Netflix on in another tab or YouTube on in another tab. You're doing hard, focused work. You could even get like a little timer like this and set a timer for how long that you might think that it will take for you to get the task done. And that's what you're doing for a block of time. Usually I think that it's good to work in 90-minute blocks. Now, you can push this as far as you want. Like I told him shoot for at least 2 or 3 hours for each block, and he'll be able to get a lot more done doing it that way. But if you can only do 90 at a time, get your 90 focused minutes in doing whatever task you're working on, and then maybe take a breather, go get a bite to eat or something, and come back and start your next 90-minute block. So for him, I set up 3 working blocks on the days that he didn't have anything to do part-time wise. And then for the days that he had to do for his part-time job, he would just do 1 in the afternoon after he got done with what he was doing. And now sleep was a big problem for him. He had a very bad sleep routine. He wasn't consistent. He was going to sleep at like 3, 4 a.m. sometimes, maybe even later when like the sun comes up at 6 a.m. or something. He was really bad. He said he struggled with this for a long time. And I'm not gonna say I was glad to hear that, but I was happy to help him with this because I had a similar problem for a long time, for years. So I was like, dude, look, I struggled with sleep for so long. I understand how hard it can be. And these are the things that help me the most correct my sleep. So obviously the goal is a consistent sleeping pattern. You want to be waking up and going to sleep at the same time every single day. And I started giving him some tools that I knew to fix with this. First was sun exposure soon after waking up. He was not doing this. He was also waking up like in the middle of the day. But I told him, if you figure out what time that you want to wake up every day, then you need to start getting sun exposure right after you wake up. And I mean, it doesn't take a long time, 2 to 5 minutes if the sun's out, and if it's overcast, a little bit longer. But and because his sleep schedule was so messed up, I was like, look, it's going to be hard to do this like immediately. Like it'll take probably 3 or 4 days before your circadian rhythm actually adjusts to this time schedule. But I was like, man, listen, just do a couple hours a day. So set an alarm and wake up 2 hours earlier, then go get some sunlight, and then do the same thing the next day 2 hours earlier. I think that helped him a lot actually get this done. Also, I had him seriously reduce lights late at night because I saw he was working on, his business or working on something else. late at night before he was going to sleep. And I'm like, dude, that is crushing your sleep. That's really bad for your circadian rhythm. I understand that it's hard. Like we're always on our phones. We're always checking stuff. And if you're like me and you're like him, then you want to get work done. So you're trying to get as much in, trying to be as efficient as possible. But it's really beneficial for you to have like a winding down period, an hour, maybe 30 minutes of just no screens, no blue light, nothing like that. Like I said, I told him to put his phone and his computer in blue light mode, especially like late at night. And I told him he could set a schedule for this. If it's like an hour or 2 hours before he goes to sleep, have his phone automatically shift into the blue light blocking mode. That could be really helpful. I also told him to avoid eating like a whole lot of food right before going to sleep. You can have a snack or, a little bit here or there, maybe a little nightcap of like milk or something, but you should not be eating a big meal right before you go to sleep or within an hour or two of going to sleep. And he said that he was doing that. He would eat nothing all day and then eat like a whole bunch of food right before going to sleep. And like, it makes you tired. It does. But your body has to digest that food, and it's using a lot of energy and a lot of processing power to do that. And you're not getting a deep restorative sleep like you need to be to perform at the highest level. So for the best sleep, I told him that you want your body temperature to drop significantly. It can help if you take a hot shower like an hour before, which is kind of counterintuitive. But basically the idea is you take a hot shower, your body heats up, and whenever it has to cool itself down over that hour, it will actually cool down below where it was before you took the shower. So your body temperature will drop a little bit. Now, I think the science is you have to have your body temperature drop like 3 to 5 degrees to be able to go to sleep. So it's much more efficient to sleep in a cool, very, very dark room. You don't want any light really to disturb your sleep. So these are just some things that I kind of helped him optimize. And he also said that he mentioned that he had problems like with his mind racing late at night before he was going to sleep, which is common. I had the same thing too. I tried to give him some tips with that. I told him, hey, it might be useful for you to like jot down or journal what you did that day, what you want to do the next day, or at least have like sometimes, like I use Notion a lot, as you can see here. And I got him using Notion as too. I gave him a pretty good template for him to organize his day-to-day on. And I was like, dude, just make sure you come in here and you write down everything that you need to do tomorrow. So it gets it out of your head. It's out of your mind. And you can set this up in a very organized way to where like, this is the thing I'm going to do first. While whatever, it can take 5 to 10 minutes to get all this done before you go to sleep. And it just helps you ease your mind, helps you calm down and wind down a lot easier. And also, he was like not exercising at all. And, I don't really get on to people about this, but I try to encourage them as much as possible to at least do something like, once a day or even, a few times a week, because the value you get out of this, or the leverage this gives you, is huge. Like, I can't think of something that gives you more leverage than just working out once a day. So this is just as much for the mind as it is for the body. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, if you're training that do a hard thing muscle in your brain, it's going to help you with other aspects of your life. So if you're in the gym and you're lifting weights and you get that last rep in that you didn't know if you were going to get, it was like the hardest part of the workout. That's training your mind to be able to do hard things. So, and also like if you're running and you do an extra half mile or you do an extra mile or anything like that, it's going to do the same thing in your brain. The do hard stuff part of your mind can be trained just like a muscle. One more rep, one more lap, one more piece of content, one more cold call. It all comes from the same pathways in your brain. I kind of already went over this, but less is more. You don't have to train like an Olympian. So I wasn't trying to get him in shape necessarily, although that would be a side effect. I wasn't trying to, train him to be an athlete. I just wanted him to get the very high benefits, the very valuable benefits out of working out, which is not that big of a time commitment. Like you could do this 30 minutes a day and be great. So, and like this will release so many endorphins in your brain. This will make you a happier person. This will make you feel like you've accomplished something more than just working and sitting at a desk working on your computer. This will make you feel better. It will make you more energized. It actually gives you energy to get a workout in, especially if it's a hard workout, 30 minutes, an hour long. You might feel tired immediately after, but trust me, throughout the day and the next day, you will feel so much better if you actually get some exercise in. So I had him set up. So I asked him like what he liked to do, and he said he was actually interested in jogging and weights. And I was like, dude, you could also like find some people to play a sport with, like pickleball or shoot basketball or something like that. Anything really, just any type of movement is great for this. And I wanted him to get some movement in daily. I didn't say like you don't have to do the same thing every day. And I'm sure, like, I was like, you don't have to get this done every single day. If you have something that comes up, it's fine, but shoot for daily. And I think he decided to do 3 days of lifting weights and 3 days of either a long walk or a short jog. So that's what he decided to go with there. Nutrition, I did go over with him a little bit more in depth than what I have on here. But basically, because he was eating just like really, really bad food that ruined his focus. He was eating like sugary, like stuff that just takes it out of you, especially if you're eating that midday when you still need to get something done. Not good. So I was like, truthfully, man, if you just eat whole foods, like you're almost all the way there. Like you're going to be doing so much better than you are now. I kind of went into it a little more depth here, but that's just because it was specific to his situation. And then after this, we went over stuff that actually had to do with his specific business and the key actions that he needs to be taking every day to actually grow his business. So on the right side here, I have a task rank, and this was because he had a few one-time things that needed to be done that were taking him a long time, and he was really struggling with deciding what to do. So he was able to kind of articulate to me the things that were slowing him down, the things that were in his way, but he wasn't able to be like, what's most important? What do I need to work on first? So all I did was I was like, dude, this is stopping you from doing the most important thing, which is delivering stuff to your clients, because he had OVS set up in a way to where he wanted to record both his piano, his keyboard, and himself, and talk to it. And the problem he was having was it wasn't linking up. Like there was a lag in between the video and what he's saying and the noise coming out. And he said it was kind of complicated with his setup to get it fixed. So he was struggling to do that, and he was saying he was spending a long time trying to figure it out. But I was like, dude, this is really important. I need you to actually focus in and figure this out, and set some time aside to figure this out, because this is how he would deliver like Loom videos to his clients on like correcting mistakes that they make and teaching them and stuff. So I was like, you need to figure out this first. And he still didn't have his Start Here course set up. So he had quite a few people in his community. He probably had about 100 people in there already, but he didn't have like any type of system where it was set up to say, hey, this is what you need to do next. This is what my community is about. These are the rules. This is how you get help, stuff like that. He didn't have that set up yet. So I was like, you need to get that done right away too. And he didn't have a VSL. He didn't have a video sales letter on his about page to describe what the community is about. He was getting most of his traffic from YouTube, where he was posting, that type content to get the people that would be interested in his service. And that was working pretty well. But whenever they got to the landing page, all they got was a word description, and people don't like reading. So, I was like, you have to have a video up here because the conversion rate will skyrocket if you get that done. And then the last thing was developing his courses. So the way he wanted to structure his offer was with one-on-one coaching, to where he's going to be hands-on, but then also he would have a smaller offer for like a course where, it would be like his method to learning piano fast. And in that course, I think that he wanted to structure it to where they would pay a small fee to get the course and the community. And then he would obviously have an upsell for him to sell his one-on-one services. So I was like, the courses is not like the most important thing right now, because you can still sell the one-on-one services, but that needs to be done so that we can have a dual offer to get the people who maybe aren't ready to make the jump to do the one-on-one coaching, but they do want some help. So we got those tasks ranked out here. Those were just like the bigger one-off tasks that he needed to do that week. For key action items, these are stuff that I wanted him to be doing every single day, and I have them basically in the order that I want him to do, but like each one of these would be a block. So he has 3 working blocks a day. I said, obviously you have to have your delivery done before anything else, because those are your clients. Those are the people who are already paying you. So the first thing that you do working wise is to get your delivery done. So, and I said delivery is variable for now because his offer wasn't exactly structured, or wasn't finished, wasn't finalized yet. And he was working with some people. He didn't know how to, on the sales call, offer either the higher ticket or the lower ticket offer. And we went over that in the call after this one. But for this, I was like, look, delivery is variable right now. These are going to be mainly Loom videos that you're sending off to people who had questions or needed help with something. And then obviously live one-on-one calls that you're going to be scheduling with these people. So I had him set this up to where like your first working block of the day, you get done whatever delivery items you need to get done, whatever videos you need to send out, get that done first because it's for your clients and you want them to have as good of an experience as possible, right? So then for his other more consistent working blocks, I had him set up where he's doing one working block of marketing every day and one working block of development each day because his community wasn't fully built out yet. His offer wasn't fully built out. And obviously you need to continue to iterate and keep developing. And I thought these two blocks for him made the most sense. So for him, marketing was making thumbnails, making long form videos for YouTube, and making short form reels for Instagram and TikTok. And obviously doing research on the market, seeing what they want, and creating videos that are appealing to the type audience that he wants to bring into his business. In my opinion, long form for YouTube is by far the best for him as far as getting people who are actually interested in joining his community and actually paying him, because usually they're actually actively looking for this type of content on YouTube. People go to YouTube to learn, to look for some information, to learn about something. So I thought that was way more important for him to focus on. So I told him to just make sure he's focusing on long form with most of his energy, and then he can kind of repurpose that content that he made for long form into short form reels and TikToks and stuff like that. And then for his development work block, obviously we're doing a lot of the things that are done over here because these are the most important key items he needs to get done for his offer. I have that he needs to be working on his VSL. He's developing his course. He's to set up his live calls where they work, seamlessly with no problems. You need to have this is a welcome sequence for people who join his community but don't book a call. And they need to have like a nurturing sequence that leads them into booking a call. And then also he need to get his setup for OBS done for his Loom videos that he's going to be sending out for his clients. This is all stuff that goes into the development block. I think we did the task rank after I wrote him out these blocks, but the main point here was to have 2 working blocks a day where one, he's doing marketing straight. He's just focused on marketing, making content, posting stuff on YouTube. And then another block throughout the day where he's just working on development. He's making his offer better. He's making his service better. And he's actually delivering a quality product to his clients. And doing it this way, I think will keep you very consistent. It will keep you making progress towards the goals that you want to do. It really helped him a lot. So please feel free to design your own system like this using these same concepts, because I think it can really help you. And if this video helped you rethink your actions and you want a plan that's built specifically for you, not just some cookie cutter advice, don't forget to check out the link below in the description to book a free call. And if you're building an online business, don't forget to subscribe. I've got more content like this coming every week. Thanks for watching.